Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Wonder of Anime podcast. I'm your host, Lisa. I am a multimedia content creator, and my work spans across my blog, my YouTube channel, and of course, this podcast. I am so happy to be back, and this time with a returning guest to the podcast, which is extra special because this is someone who I hold very dear in my heart. If you are listening to this podcast, anywhere, the podcast art is done by this person. All the little graphics of me are done by this person. So I'm so excited to have Lucy on.
Yay!
Welcome,
Thank you for
Lucy.
having me.
Yes. So, for those of you guys who don't know, Lucy Camacho, also known as Opal Lines, is a Dominican American illustrator, award winning filmmaker, and comic artist, best known for her ongoing work with IDW on Mattel's Monster High, new Scaremester, and her original manga inspired project, Heroes Circle. Motivated by her upbringing in the Dominican neighborhoods of Manhattan and her love for anime and manga, Lucy blends Japanese influences, folklore, and her love of fashion, past and present, in her work. Welcome back, Lucy!
Thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
I'm Yes, it's been so long. OGs will remember I had Lucy a long time ago, right around after she did my logo for the podcast and everything. And I haven't had her back since, but I've wanted her back. She's one of my favorite people online and offline because we've met in person a few times. And I'm so happy that you're back. So before we jump into what this episode in the anime that you're going to be talking about, I wanted to shift the focus and talk about you because since we've last talked, I feel like you, first of all, you've done so much in the time that we have last talked, but also recently you published your one shot manga, which is a shojo manga, and that kind of I feel like stems off your work with Hero Circle. So if you could walk us through like what was your process with Hero Circle and how did that end up becoming this one shot or, this one shot? How did that come out of that project?
Yeah, absolutely. So last time I was on the podcast, I had every intention of making Hero Circle a pilot animation. At that time, I was working with a bunch of other Dominican creatives who mostly specialize in animation, and they kind of I wouldn't say peer pressured is the word, but I would say peer pressured me into kind of doing a pilot because out of everybody in the group, I had the most cohesive story and idea. And things happen. Animation's very expensive, as we've found out. And this was back in 2021, so the world was still kind of on pause. So it just didn't really feel like the time for me specifically. So, I was like, screw it. I'm just gonna make it a graphic novel. I actually got agented very quickly in comparison to most authors. Most authors have to query for quite a long time, but I actually had an author just excuse me, not an author, an agent, just come up to me and just be like, hey, um have you ever considered doing graphic novels? I would like to represent you. So I've basically from 2022 to late 2023-ish, early 2024, I was just submitting my stuff for Hero Circle, and at that time it was like this full colored situation, traditional graphic novel. And I think it was 2 years and a half that I was on submission, which is like that period of time when you're submitting stuff to publishing houses. And it was just so many rejections. I think I counted a total of like 15 total rejections in that time. And to varying degrees, a lot of people had like opposite opinions of each other of why it wasn't a good fit. And I think at the end of the day, what it ended up being was that I was pitching an adult graphic novel with the characters that I had. And everybody was going into this being like, oh, so you mean this is not for teenagers? Like, I thought these were teenagers. And I'm like, no, like, I'm trying to hit like the 20 to 25 range, which, when you're drawing characters, it's kind of hard to make them look that way. It's a big age gap. They could easily be like 19-year-olds if you weren't paying attention. So, I kind of came to the conclusion that I was kind of lying to myself. And I'm like, I think what this all was is that I wanted to make a manga. And I took this whole 4-year journey to just come to this conclusion that I knew from the beginning because I was trying to like fit a mold. I was trying to please people. I was trying to take like the quickest track, especially because I had family members kind of like relying on me very heavily. They were just like, we need you to make it. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? So, in 2024, I was like, you know what? I'm going to pause doing conventions because I had been touring the country for several years. And I was like, I'm going to not do conventions anymore. I'm going to focus on my craft and like actually learn how to make manga, not something that looks like a manga. And but that came with its own set of like weirdness, where a lot of people who make indie manga solely make shonen and seinen. I, in my little group, I think it's me out of 4 people that make shojo manga or josei manga, and it's a group of like 300 people. So I was like, okay, so I'm pretty much on my own on this. Like, I would show people my stuff, and like they're like, oh, well, it looks like shojo manga, so I guess it's good. And I'm like, well, okay. So I had to basically kind of start from my roots and start reading stuff that got me into shojo manga, especially the manga slash anime that we're going to talk about today. And then I started reading things that were out currently. So like I got into like Colette Decides to Die, Fall in Love You False Angels, Pink and Habanero, In the Clear Moonlit Dusk. Like I'm like, okay, what are the girlies reading now? Because I have been out of the shoujo manga game for nearly a decade. So all the stuff that I knew was like Skip Beat, Nana, Kami-sama Kiss, like the traditional ones. But I'm like, there has to be more. And I got so immersed in shoujo manga that I'm like, I love this more than I did as a teenager, which I did not think was possible because I was really in the shoujo sauce. So learning techniques, reading interviews, buying art books. I actually have a cousin who lives in Fukuoka, and she actually sent me a bunch of like shoujo magazines, and I was just going through. I couldn't read it, but I was just going through it, seeing what these things look like in their traditional like form before they're making made into tankoban. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. So I spent about a year making 32 pages for my one shot because I wanted to try to see if I knew how to use Clip Studio in this manner. Because up until this point, I was just making like full color illustrations for like comic stuff. So like Monster High, My Little Pony, and all my other like freelance stuff. But I'm like, do I actually know how to make manga in this like application though? So I basically used this one shot as a test run to see how I would do doing a chapter's worth of work. Because up until this point, I didn't have actually anything to show. So I'm like, I'm gonna test to see my endurance, if I know how to use Clip Studio, and my storytelling. So, funnily enough, this one shot had no script. I did everything from page to page. I had no script. I'm like, I'm just going to wing it. It originally was supposed to be 8 pages and it became 32. Don't ask me how that happened. But I was like, okay, let's take a section out of my story that I know I'm going to touch on, and I'm going to take it into like a standing one shot. And that's basically what ended up happening. And I'm extremely proud of myself. I put it up on Global Comics, and it actually got the attention of the website. It's, I think to this day, still recommended as like I think they have like a section for like romance or like page to page scrolling because some of them have vertical. I'm still like one of the top like comics for that section. Um and a lot of people have really like come up to me being like, this is insane to see like characters of color in this shojo dreamy aesthetic, and it fits so nicely. And I'm like, that's the point. Because it's like, even though my story is about superheroes and stuff like that, I still really value slice of life, romance, adventure, but through the perspective and style of shojo, because shojo is so unique in its storytelling. It's so fluid. Like it's not confined to the strictness of panels like shonen is. The storytelling and emotional like tone setting is top notch. So like I wanted to participate in that and actually add to that, because I don't really know that many indie manga creators that like are like, yeah, like my gig is shojo. That's what I do.
I can't think of any.
Me neither.
But I love this story, and of course I knew a lot of it because like we follow each other, we're friends.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's so important for people to hear this story, because I do think that oftentimes like we think like we have a vision in our head and it's like, well, I can only do this vision in this way. And then as you and it isn't until you're on the path that it becomes clear to you like, actually I don't want to do it this way. I want to do this and I want to do that. And you joke like, it took you 4 years to figure this out, but it's like, had you not traveled that path, maybe you wouldn't have come to this conclusion. Maybe it wouldn't even have like you've come back to shojo in this way. So I was love your story, and I actually haven't read it yet because I think I was on a social media break when you launched it. And then cuz I'm always like I'm on social media too much, and then I get off for like 3 weeks, and then I come back and I'm like, "Hey guys, what happened?"
You're so valid for that. You're so valid.
But then I'm also always reading something for like arcs and like reviews and stuff. So I was like, I need to sit down and actually read it. But I've seen a lot of it because I've also been your close friends. So I feel like I've seen the story. I'm like, I got it. But I really love, especially what you said about, seeing people of color in these like lights. And I think too, like I remember back in the Tumblr days, like, or even now, like you give yourself like a shojo edit and you put the little sakura blossoms and the little light, I forget what they're called, light
Like
spheres. I
the
remember I had this app.
bubbles, the shojo bubbles.
Yes. And I had this app, I would like edit myself in that way. So I do think it's so important. And now that you have, you've done this one shot, do you think you'll go back to hero circles? Is that like is that project still something you're going to be working on?
Yeah, so like right now I'm prepping for Anime NYC, which is at the end of this coming month. And initially what I was going to do was have chapter 1 ready by that time because it's been written for quite like over a year now. And I just hadn't like actually put pen to paper because I was trying to finish the one shot first. However, I do have this volume 0 thing where it's an illustrated guide to my story and my characters. It's basically like a art book pitch fusion. It's a very interesting concept, but I'm going to be bringing it with me to Anime NYC because Hero Circle is pretty well known in New York. I mean, shocker, it takes place in New York. But like whenever I go to New York, I always get recognized. They're like, "You're that girl with the hero school," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." So I'm gonna be like selling it there, and I'm actually making a like a shikishi board for it. Like I'm really in like my shojo manga bag, where it's like, yeah, like if you get it, like you can get a shikishi board because it's like I value the shojo manga community so much. It's like if I'm gonna be participating in making manga that you guys will eventually read, I want you guys to get the full experience. And like actually like like you supporting me is not going to be any different of you like supporting like Julieta Suzuki or like Coco Uzuki like and stuff like that. Like I want to do the same thing because it's like if I'm going to participate in this art form, I got to learn the rules, which is or I think a lot of like US based like indie manga artists kind of go wrong where they get so caught up in trying to emulate their idols that they kind of forget what makes their idols to begin with. Like don't only emulate the like I guess not emulate but don't only emulate their successes but like try to see like the mindset that even got them there to begin with. And shoujo manga lovers, we're used to a certain kind of thing, so like I when I'm doing my stuff I want you to be able to get those same beats just delivered in a different fashion.
Yeah, and I think something that you speak to in that is that people don't realize. Obviously, like manga and anime, like they're businesses, right? But there's something about the community of like and the culture surrounding it. Like I think I'm a big, no surprise to anyone, I'm a big BL fan, and they'll have like BL pop-ups and cafes, and it's not just like, okay, like you have the experience of you reading the manga. It's you're going to that cafe, meeting other fans, you're
The
getting
community aspect.
little standees, and like, not me drop, I think that was Gojo. Was that
Oh
no, that wasn't
no.
Gojo. Somebody fell. It wasn't Gojo. But you get like that, those little, and it's just people, it's like, oh, it's just consumerism, it's just this, it's just that. But it's like, no, that's part of it. Like that's part of the
It's
experience.
a
And it's
community building aspect.
yes, and it's funny because you mentioned Julieta, and I'm pretty sure you've also read her new manga with the vampire, Otaku Loves
Vampires
Kiss.
Love Bite? Yes, top
Yes, I'm
fan right here.
I love it too. And I think about how the main character in that, like, she goes to Japan because she's like, I want to be immersed in the community, and she starts going to the cafes and like getting the merch and the blind boxes, and it's like that is part of that. So I love that that's also a focus of your work too, because I feel like sometimes like we're spoiled as anime and manga fans where we have like a lot of merch, but if you're like a traditional fan of like something American, like I can't get a little standee of insert whatever American book with my favorite characters. They don't have the little standee that I love.
Yeah, they don't community build whatsoever. They kind of
Hmm.
just expect you to blindly consume, and I just don't really enjoy that. I think that's why I don't like a lot of American like IP. Like it bores me to tears because there's no fandom community aspect coming from like the actual like I don't know, publisher or
Hmm.
distributor themselves. Like we don't have pop-up cafes or stuff like that. Like I literally wring my freaking like my hands every time I see that like let's say for example, the Yono of the Dawn is having a pop-up cafe and like I don't know the Philippines, and I'm like, damn, I can't be there. Like it wrecks me in turn. Like especially like if you're a fan of like not a lesser known mangaka, but like I guess lesser known to the American space. Like let's say for
Hmm.
example, like my idol, like I think I'd pass out if I met her, is Arina Tenemura. She did Full Moon wo Sakashite, Phantom Thief Janine and stuff like that. Like I love her, but her like stuff is so rare to get on the secondhand market because she only does like not she herself, but it's like whoever like represents her and like distributes his stuff only does it in Japan. Like I really have not seen an Arena Tenemura title on the shelves since like Full Moon was Sakashite.
Yeah, and then you mentioned it. I feel like it definitely is a missed opportunity, and I think some places now, like here, are finally starting to like kind of try and model that because I
Yeah.
think of like they'll do stuff during con season. So like we go to Anime NYC all the time, and there's pop ups at Anime NYC or things that happen during that. But it's like if you don't have access to a con, like they're not doing that. And now like Netflix, they're doing the Netflix house. And it's like these interactive like, there's gonna be one here in King of Prussia. And it's like gonna be interactive experiences with Squid Game and One Piece. And it's like I should have been doing that. Like it's such a like the fans are
Mhm.
ready to spend the money, but it's
Yeah.
like a lot they didn't really take the chance on that. So I'm hoping, people are making more moves of doing that. And I know Kadansha's doing like Kadansha House in New York and that's been huge. And I'm like, we need more. Yes. Keep going. You're scratching the surface.
No, literally, like quite literally. I've seen some pretty elaborate setups for like a lot of like niche things.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess that's like the benefit of being in Japan. Like you can just do those things and then it's like that's home base, you know?
Yes,
It's
right.
not like I can just be like, "Hey guys, I'm having a meetup and it's like a sign of affection like themed and we're going to have a cafe participate." Like that we can't do that. Like
Yeah, exactly. And then we'd get sued and that will not be fun. But yeah, so I love it. And of course, I'm always wishing, success in any project that you do because I know you and you put your heart and your soul and you're so honest about the journey too. And I think that is important because a lot of people would be like afraid to be like, I worked on this for so long and it didn't pan out. And it's like, well, no, that's part of the journey. Like, that's part of what happens.
yeah, absolutely.
So I love it. But now we are going to get into the meat of our show. What I have brought you in here. You today are on in the expert seat, I should say, to talk about one of your favorite anime. Um, and I always start off by saying my experience with this anime. And this may actually come as a shock to people, but if you really know me, it won't. I actually have never seen Kimi ni Todoke. I actually dropped Kimi ni Todoke, and I swore that I would never watch it. So we will get into why. And my mind can be changed. I will say when I tried to watch it, it was definitely at a point where the messages just were not being received by me. And if you've listened to this podcast before or do watch anything that I do, I always say that I feel like you have to consume things when it's time for you to consume them. And if it's not the right time in your life, like you're just not going to be able to receive the messages. And I feel like when I tried to watch it, it wasn't time. So, like I said, we're talking about Kimi ni Todoke. So, if you can tell us, what is Kimi ni Todoke?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first off, Kimi ni Todoke was actually initially published in Besatu Margaret, which is one of my favorite shojo magazines. I have many, many copies in my house. But its first run started in 2005 and then it went all the way to November of 2017, which is pretty recent, actually. That
That's
was
a
actually kind of
big,
surprise.
yeah, that's a long run too.
It's so like it was basically compiled, excuse me, into 30 total tankoban, so like the smaller manga. And actually there are over 33 million copies in print in circulation like by 2019. So the mangaka is Karuho Shina, and the anime adaptation that we're all familiar with, that first aired, not the Netflix one, but the first season, first two seasons, started off in October 6th of 2009. That would make me, depending on the month, 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So I actually watched it, I think, 2 years after it aired. So I was, I think, 12 by that time. So prime audience for Kimi Todoke, which will color my opinion soon. There is a light novel adaptation, which I actually did not know about. When I first got introduced to Kimi Todoke, I had only seen the manga and then like the anime, of course. But then again, this is back in the time where you had to order manga off of catalogs. So maybe never made it to the catalog. The anime adaptation was produced, or animated, excuse me, by Production IG. And then the Netflix adaptation that we did see for season three, that one aired on March 30th of 2023. And there actually was a live action in 2010, which I vividly remember seeing on Tumblr.
I do remember people talking about the live action.
Yeah.
That is that is so I'm like the lore. I'm thinking in 2009 I was already in high school.
Hmm.
I'm not that much older than you. I think I am. I think I'm like 8 years older than you. But yeah, in 2009 I would have been a sophomore. I think I was a sophomore. And I was into anime and manga. I mean, I've been into anime and manga my life. I just completely missed the Kimi ni Todoke train. So how did you actually get introduced to the anime?
So I was on an anime binge through like 2008 to like 2011 because I had an older cousin who, I think at that time, so I was 9, 10 years old, so she was 14, 15, and she was super into like anime. She grew up on Toonami and all this stuff, but she was into the more gory things, so like Rurouni Kenshin, Elfen Lied and stuff like that. I was not into that whatsoever. It scared me. I was a Catholic schoolgirl who clutched my pearls when they would put on Bedrock on the radio. So I was like, okay, I don't know what any of this is, but I'm interested because it's cartoons and I am like I was already drawing by that point. So like I was really interested into the really like cute big eyes, the long colored hair. It was very new to me.
Mhm.
And my cousin's like, let me introduce you to the like more like kid ones that I've seen. So that's when she introduced me to Full Moon wo Sakashite. So that was the first anime I had ever seen all the way through. And then after that, this is when the times when Crunchyroll was like a pirate site. And you would like, look for random websites like 123 anime or whatever, and I was on DeviantArt one day, and then somebody drew fan art of Sawako, which is the main character of Kimi ni Todoke. And I'm like, she looks interesting, and everybody kept drawing fan art of her. So I was like, okay, let me give it a go. And at this time, I think I was 12, about to be 13, which is only a year younger than Sawako because she's 14. So again, a lot of my like draw to Kimi ni Todoke was that the characters were like about my age. And I had just made the transition from a Catholic private school to a public middle school. So seeing them in that school setting, even though it was in Japan, kind of was a nice surrogate for me to kind of experience traditional school life that isn't like what I was experiencing in Catholic school, where you sit in the same chair all day long, you don't leave. The teachers are the ones that swap out, and then you only get to go outside for recess and then you go home. So, that like kind of free form unstructured experience of interacting with people in other classes, that was something super foreign to me. So seeing Kimi ni Todoke really really spoke to that time of my life.
That is, it's funny you say that because I think about like in general, have I seen anime like when I was the age of the characters, and I my first anime was Sailor Moon, but I was like 5, so I was definitely not. And then I rewatched it, but I was already like 18 or 19. So that definitely is, I love that you had that like moment where, it's kind of in the same space and time of like what you're going through in that certain season. When did you realize this is going to be one of your favorite anime? Like, was it a certain scene then? Was it like later in the future that you thought about it?
So, two moments for me, I think. So the first moment was funny, like the moment I hit play, because that opening lives in my mind rent free. Like the opening sequence, I like if you were to play the first 3 seconds in front of me, like I would turn my head because like it's like a sleeper agent to me. Like I for some reason that opening it's like in my mind rent free. It's kind of like the opening to Chainsaw Man that I'm like, whoa, I know what that is. But yeah, that opening was so like visually and like auditorially speaking, like so striking to me that like to this day I'm 26, about to be 27 now, that I'm like it still brings me that sense of nostalgia and safeness and softness that I have not experienced since. And then the second moment, which at that time, again, I grew up with a very strict Catholic upbringing, so that comes with the familiar territory of not being able to interact with boys. So I related to Sawako so hard. So when she saw Kazehaya for the first time, I'm like, girl, me too.
You're like, same, my life.
Me too.
Ugh, I love that. I do as it because I did watch a couple episodes, so I do remember the beginning. It wasn't that long ago that I watched it. I do remember the beginning and them interacting, and that was just very cute. It is very like,
Yeah.
they're so adorable. So, what is something about the series, whether it is the characters, plot points that you think people always get wrong, or is like a common misconception about the series?
So there is so okay. To be fair, when I first saw Kimi ni Todoke, like I don't even think Reddit existed or like anything. To be quite frankly with you, like I think LiveJournal was like the most popping thing at that time. And DeviantArt, of course. I like when I watch anime, I don't really like interact with fandoms. I think the only time I actually interacted with a fandom was with My Hero Academia, but it was just so massive. There was just like, how could you not? But when I watch things, I don't like to interact with other people like as I'm watching it because I don't want people's opinions or their hot takes to kind of color my experience.
My
I grew up in
entire
a time
life.
where you watch anime by yourself. Like it's a very individual experience. Nowadays it's a very communal one. But when I was watching anime for the first time as a kid, as a teenager even, it was something that like maybe you knew two people you could talk to about it. And we were just geeked that it was even available to us at all. But there was an opinion that I came across too, actually, that actually grinded my gears. Um, that I saw on TikTok because Kimi ni Todoke actually popped off on TikTok, and I found that very interesting because Kimi ni Todoke used to be like that hidden gem, and then it wasn't. Because before people were really hyper fixated on Maid Sama and Kami Sama Kiss. Kimi ni Todoke kind of flew under the radar for quite some time until like that like dressing like a shojo protagonist like trend kind of like popped up, and then people became aware of Sawako. So the one that pisses me off the most out of the two is that they say Sawako is a weak main lead. And I interpret it as not like physically weak because clearly she's like 14, but like I interpreted it as like weak narratively, which I just have to disagree because a lot of these people are watching Kimi ni Todoke for the first time like a post COVID world. So this is after 2020. I saw it 2 years after it aired. It was a very much you had to be there, like in order to understand the climate that Sawako was born in, like socially and like I guess even politically to an extent. A lot of main leads in shoujo manga were either a Sawako or they were more of like a Hachi from Nana, like but both very naive to varying degrees. So for me, Sawako, I don't agree with her being a weak lead, only because number one, she's 14. Like I don't know what you would expect out of a 14-year-old. I really resonated with Sawako because she was like me. Like I was also a sheltered kid, but I didn't realize I was sheltered until I came across like situations where it required me to act with more social confidence that I actually possessed. But the difference between me and Sawako is that Sawako had really good friends who were willing to be patient with her because the type of person Sawako is very common in Japanese society because it's not that socially accepted to be super upfront with your feelings versus here in the United States where we say what we mean and we do what we say. Not being upfront and kind of being shy, it's kind of like what's wrong with you? And that was something that I struggled with a lot because like, for whatever reason it was, I like you typically don't have friends that are like, it's okay, like take your time, like, have your character development on your own terms. No. People are like, you're weird, get with the program by tomorrow, actually, preferably. And kids are really mean. um and I don't think she's weak also too because it's like, the story, if you're paying attention, it is a slice of life shojo story. Also too, it was published in Besatu Margaret. If you know the other titles in Besatu Margaret, this is a common plot line in Besatu Margaret. Like, I don't know if people know this, but a lot of shojo magazines, they are sorted by like niche, not genre, but niche. So let's say, for example, Hanatu Yume is mostly fantasy, so that's where Yona comes from. Like Taku Vampires in that as well. And then Basatu Margaret has like a star brighter than the sun with that tall girl, and then Kimi Todoke was also in that. So all these stories have a centralizing theme of like, let's say, fantasy, school life. Margaret is specifically school life, but it has this certain like cutesy vibe to it. It's very chill, it's very low stakes. So like these things are not made independently like stories are here in the US. So you have to also take that into consideration. Like it's kind of like get familiar from where your manga and anime is getting sourced from because there's a whole
Mhm.
system that you're completely unaware of and you're judging this manga or anime independently as like this thing, but it was literally catered to and like edited by an editor from Bisatu Margaret. With that, it's like, okay, do we have this audience who reads this magazine for this kind of story? So you have to go in accordance with that.
That I it's funny because I was that person, but not in that sense of like because I didn't finish the anime. But for me, one of the issues that I had when I was watching it, and again, I'm watching it when I'm like 20 at this time because I tried to watch it during COVID, I think in 2020. So I would have been 28. And for me, something that I fully admit this is like a blind side for me is like I'm a very direct person, especially as I've gotten older, where I'm like, you're not going to talk to me like that. You're not going to treat me like that. And I specifically, and I'm like, hesitate on saying spoilers because this doesn't give away too much, but the episode specifically that made me drop it, I think it was 4 or 5, is where the mean girl like confronts her in the
Oh,
bathroom.
Kurumi. Yeah, Kurumi.
I
Yeah.
had to turn it off. I was like, hell no, you're not gonna be talking to me like this in a bathroom. And it just, for me, it just wasn't something that I could align with. And what actually changed my mind is that I saw a video from one of my friends, the anime T, and she was talking about how important girls like Saoko are to portray. And not everyone is direct, and not everyone is someone that can face bullies head on. And some people will just go along to avoid conflict. And for me, that was such like a light bulb moment where I was like, oh yeah, like we do need, like, not everyone can just be like, you're not gonna talk to me this way. But it was frustrating, I feel like, for me. And I realized then at that time, like, I'm like, okay, I need to like read different things and watch different things because I'm so removed from that experience of being in high school that it's hard for me to relate. And it was like, it's not a problem with the show, it's a problem with me where it's like I need to adapt. But I do think, it is. I hate when people say like that those type of things aren't like realistic, like, because there are people like that are shy and not outspoken, or they're told to just kind of be like, put your head down, avoid conflict. But it is definitely something I definitely I hate when people in general say that like characters, especially female characters, are like weak and stuff, and it's like I just don't think everyone is like a hero from and then not everyone should be a hero.
Absolutely. And it's like it's a slice of life, like school drama at the end of the day, you know what I mean? And it's like what actually annoys me a little bit because this was a debate that was going on I think it was Twitter, where it's like, oh, we don't have female loser nerd characters. And because they were like comparing to Okarun from Dandaran. And I'm like, but immediately my brain went to Sawako. I'm not saying that she's a loser, not in the slightest. She has her shit together, but it's more like she's a quote unquote loser in the social outcast type.
Hmm.
Because Sawako, her whole thing is that the reason why people don't come near her or talk to her is that she is a social person, quiet spoken, but she is social. And she does attempt, like, a genuine attempt to make friends, especially in the first episode. But like that's when we get introduced to the concept that she looks like the Ring, like the girl from the Ring, and that's why people don't like her, which is a really, really realistic reason in my opinion. Like there have been moments when I was in middle school where like we would come across people be like, oh, so and so looks like this, so and so looks creepy, so and so looks weird, like, so I don't talk to them even though they might be a genuine person who was trying to make connection. So that to me made a lot of sense. But that scene where you're talking about that she was getting confronted in the bathroom for like causing a rumor that she didn't, but she was just an easy target because she doesn't talk and they know that she won't defend herself. To me that makes more sense because especially after I've seen more Korean dramas where like bullying is like a central theme, like I think it's really, I don't want to say ignorant because that's a really hot word, but like it's really like it's a blind spot in our like perception as like people who live in the United States, and like me and you are both Hispanic, so like we come from a culture that is very outspoken, like we do not hold anything back, versus like someone who like Sawako who's living in Japan, especially like apparently this place the story takes place in Hokkaido. I had no idea. But the story takes place in Hokkaido in like 2007 or 6 or excuse me, 2008. And like it is totally normal to have a girl just be not super upfront with her emotions. Now, like compound that with the fact that she's shy, that's like a recipe for disaster in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like standing up for yourself. And then I don't know how accurate this is, but like I'm pretty sure like fighting is highly discouraged in Japan. Like you can actually get arrested for self defense and stuff like that. So it's like these people acting this way is not for no reason. It's not like they have the same laws as us or the same perceptions about what's socially acceptable with how you are able to defend yourself verbally and physically. Like I know there's a lot of things with like Hispanic culture where it's like it's totally acceptable to like call somebody fat on first meeting, but like God forbid you say anything about their children, even if it's not combative, or like you could just be like, oh, like they're this or they're that. They'd be like, oh, what are you talking about my kids about? That's something you don't touch. Like it's super arbitrary lines that we draw that suit are like that are made to kind of facilitate a certain social fabric. So like again, it's kind of like you had to be there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially for a character like Sawako. If you see the current like things that are getting put out, the character like the female protagonists are not like that at all. Like there are trends with the kind of female protagonists that we get. Right now, the trends that we're getting is very much like I don't know if you've read Lovesick Ellie.
Mm-mm.
So Lovesick Ellie is like has a main character where she's super like she's a super unapologetic nerd and she's open about being interested in things like sexuality and like openly liking expressing that like to the boys that she likes, and it's like just being a total like quote unquote loser and a nerd about the things that she likes. They're more outspoken, but that to me just shows that that girls in Japan are being influenced like things like social media, so our behaviors are becoming more flattened because of social media. Koronama Sawako, she has like a flip phone. She got a phone halfway through season 1. Like she didn't have a phone up until this point. Like I don't know. I feel like it's just unfair, even though there was so many hints in the show, if you watched it all the way through, that like this was she's a product of her time and a product
Yeah.
of the society that she grew up in.
No, absolutely. And I think, you mentioned the bullying thing, and a lot of people don't know, like, bullying in Asian, it's not like here where somebody shoves you in a locker and it's like, get out of here, loser. Like, they have massive bullying problems that I learned about recently. So it definitely isn't comparable. And I think you just make such a great point about, like, I find that, like, people think things exist in a vacuum, right? And, like, oh, this is just my hero show. It's not making a commentary on anything in real life. And it's like, well, not really. Like, we, you didn't just fall out of a coconut tree.
No, literally.
Like everything has that context. And I love that you bring that up because I do think, like I said, that was one of my blind spots where I was like, like this is that. But yeah, take it back to 2005 when this started serializing and, you know, there's just so much in a society that we are not from that contributes that. And it's the same thing, you know, like we have our own things. Like if somebody watches a show, or like listens to a bachata song, and you're like, well, actually, like there's like you think that, but here's the real thing, because we know the context. So I love that you bring that up. And you said there was a second thing too, like another misconception.
Yes. This one's shorter. But I have to defend my king Kazehaya. So if you have not seen the third season, that got made on Netflix, so Kazehaya is named the king of green flags for shojo manga and anime, because he's super sweet, he's super respectful, he never judges Sawako, he always tries to like help her to interact with her friends. He encourages her that one time to actually like volunteer to be like class rep and stuff like that. Like he's super sweet and kind, complete opposite of what most of the male characters are in American media. And he's also like 14, 15 to boot. So super sweetheart. But the thing is, I've seen a couple of people say that he lost all his progress in season 2 and 3, but mostly 3. Like, and then the relationship kind of slid backwards. And I'm like, number one, what relationship progresses in a linear fashion? Like
True.
even my own relationship with my own boyfriend, who I've been dating for 10 years now, like we'll have years where it's like, oh my god, everything's great, we're like the best thing to ever exist. And then there'll be like a 6 month period where I'm like, I hate this, like this sucks, like it doesn't. And you would
Ebbs and
think,
flows.
yeah, like you would think that we figured it out after like 10 years, but no, like new problems keep getting introduced because you keep aging, your
Hmm.
situation keeps changing. So what was convenient one time will probably be super inconvenient another time. So Kazehaya has this thing where he finally, not finally, but he meets Sawako's parents. And Sawako's dad, you know, is so used to always having Sawako with him. Like I know there was like a big thing where he Sawako always celebrated Christmas with her family, and it became somewhat of a tradition. And now that she's dating Kazehaya and is friends with her two Gyaru, like kind of troublemaker friends, Chizuru and Ayane, like now, like, you know, she's actually coming into her own and making more friends, and like will be out of the house more often. Her mom is super geeked, not even opposed to it. Her dad though is like, you know, kind of coming to terms with the loss of his little girl. Like it's like, I won't always have access to her, she will have her own life. He's happy about it, but the introduction of Kazehaya kind of puts him through a loop, because it's like now there's going to be another guy in her life. I'm not going to be the only one. She's going to be making Christmas gifts for other people, not just me. So Kazehaya gets a stern talking to by her dad, being like, "You need to be pure hearted with my daughter," which is basically saying like, "Don't get any bright ideas. Don't try to feel her up." But here's the problem is that Sawako is super honest about how she feels, like internally, not vocally, but internally. Kazehaya is having this internal war this whole time where it's like, I want to fulfill that, like, that wish. And I see Sawako as this pure girl. I don't want to tarnish her. So he's constantly fighting with himself and not wanting to get close to her, and like even rejecting her attempts to affection. And it's just like, and she's like feeling rejected and all this stuff. She's like, I want to go to that point where like I can kiss you, hug you, do more than that. And he's just like, I don't want to do that, because then you're going to perceive me as a not good guy. And I think that's so reflective of how the shojo space sees Kazehaya. Like we're all Sawako in this sense, where it's like, I don't want to ruin your perception of me, that I'm actually just not special. I'm a regular dude who has jealous fits, who like sees you in, quote unquote, impurely, because they use those weird words. Um and like I want to do like you know, typical teenager stuff with you, but I don't want to ruin that facade that I have built for you, that I'm this perfect saintly person. And people say like, oh, like he moved backwards and he was like pushing her away because of that, and I'm like, I think that's actually a reason why he's even a bigger greener flag, because the fact that he even acknowledged that, and was, even though he went about it differently, he still came to his senses and like talked about it with other people. And like I believe he spoke to Kento, who was like briefly trying to take Sawako away from him, but was just like, yeah, like how do I tell her that I'm not the perfect guy that she thought I was? And it's like, you know, to me that screams green flag. A man who can actually say like, oh yeah, I have these quote unquote flaws, but really I just don't want to break that perception that you have of me, because I cherish that version of you. Like, I don't know, that is so sweet and so mature for like a 15-year-old to think. I don't know, that like really floored me.
Yeah, that's such a, I think, it's such a no self-awareness, and I find that when people like, you're right, instead of it being like you're regressing, I was just like, you're even more honest, like you're more, no one wants their partner to see them in a negative light. No one wants their partner to be like, oh, well, actually, I'm starting to realize like you're not the best. I think those are valid. That's valid concerns. But I can't, I feel like too, and something that you mentioned in the beginning is like how we grew up like isolated in the sense where like you weren't talking about anime and manga with people. And I find I have this question in here because it always varies depending on the anime, but and also the age of the person that I'm talking to. If they're like, oh, I never really pay attention to what the community says, I don't know. And then sometimes you do know. And I watch a lot of things in a vacuum because I'm like, I actually don't care. I don't care what anybody thinks about this, which is kind of funny as an anime content creator to say. Like, I'm like, yeah, here, listen to me talk about my anime, but I actually won't listen to you talk about it because I don't trust you and your judgment. So when now that that you said what you don't that you think that people get wrong about the series, what is an unpopular opinion that you have that you think the fandom wouldn't agree with you on?
Mm, I don't know if it's unpopular as much as it's uncommon, I guess. Um, so there's this character named Peen, like he's the coach and slash homeroom teacher for everybody in the class, and then for specifically Kazehaya and his friend Ryu, they both play baseball. Which, by the way, like I've actually forgot to mention this in the beginning. Another reason why I kept with this series, I don't know how far you got. Did you see the dog get introduced?
The dog, isn't that that's like the first two three
I think it's
I
like
remember the dog.
yes, yes. So Tao will come across a dog, in a box, abandoned, and like she like Kazehaya like takes a liking to the dog and was like, okay, I'm gonna adopt him, and you see the dog reoccurring throughout the whole season. Almost becomes like an excuse for them to keep talking. And but the dog's official name or unofficial nickname is Maru-chan, but Maru-chan is short for Pedro Martinez, like the Dominican baseball player. And it happens because Kazehaya couldn't come up with a name for the dog. And his friend Rio, who's kind of like a space cadet character, was like, let's call him Pedro Martinez because they play baseball. And like, like if you know anything about Japanese baseball, they really mess with Dominican baseball players. And so they named him Pedro Martinez, and I started screaming because 12-year-old me was like, oh my god, I was acknowledged in an anime. I know it's a dog, but I was acknowledged in an anime because I'm Dominican too. So I guess my back to my uncommon opinion is that Pin, this guy who is like, I think he's supposed to be in like his mid 20s. I'm not 100% sure. He's kind of like this reoccurring theme that in the first and second season you see him in Ayane, who is this really like typical Gyaru character who's very upfront with her feelings. She has a lot of abusive boyfriends that we actually unfortunately learn about. And then she's also very affectionate with Sawako. She has like this older sister like relationship with Sawako, helps her a lot with Kazehaya and kind of comes to terms with her feelings. Gives her makeovers and stuff like that. But we kind of get hints that Ayane has a lot more going on, like under the surface that we just don't know about. That actually gets revealed more in season 3. But she has these weird moments with Peen where they're constantly talking to each other about random things, but you can feel tension between the two of them, specifically coming from Ayane. And there's a one moment where Pin tells her like, I don't like little girls, like teenagers. And she's like, oh, like don't flatter yourself, like I'm not even looking at you that way, I freaking hate you. But like you can tell that she's kind of being disingenuous about it. A lot of people don't like Peen. Like they think he's creepy, especially because like he will kind of like pull pranks on Kazehaya to like get him closer to Sawako. I like Peen and I think he's necessary because without Peen, we wouldn't really get any info on Ayane because the story does not focus on her at all. I think Pin was necessary for that reason and for the development of Kazehaya because we learn a lot of information about Kazehaya through Pin. And people were like saying like Pin was a creep, Pin was this, like why is he hanging out with teenagers all the damn time? And I'm just like, okay, that's
He's
neither
at
here
work.
or there. Yeah, like that's neither here or there. But without Pin, we wouldn't know shit about Ayane because it's revealed in season 3 because of all that build up we just did in season 1 and 2 that Ayane, the only person who understands Ayane and actually reveals to Sawako, um, kind of who Ayane is because Ayane is very closed off and doesn't share about herself. Mind you, season 3 came out what 15 years later, so I don't expect people to know. But basically, he says to Sawako, it's like Ayane's a kid too. Even though she feels more mature than you and you look to her like an older sister for advice and stuff like that, she's a kid too. She's just as insecure. She needs just as much protection. She needs as much this and that, just as much as you do. Someone who's more outwardly and more like forwardly facing, quote unquote, weak. Like people who openly express their weakness get protected. People who hide it don't. So Pin was kind of reveals himself to be a more emotionally intelligent guy, even though he's being silly and weird the whole time. That he's like, yeah, that's why I kind of like keep an eye on her and I observe her because I can tell that she's been neglected because of the way she looks and the way that she behaves in that tough facade that she has. She's just as in need of help as Sawako. So I'm like, to me, like Pin was like, he's the goat to me.
Yeah, I mean I haven't read or seen it, so I don't have much opinions on that, but I do think, and I'm okay, y'all could come at me because I really don't care. I think we have an over correction of people automatically labeling certain characters like adults, pervs, pedos, like an over correction. There's absolutely perverted weirdo characters in anime, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But it's to the point where I saw somebody call Itsuomi from A Sign of Affection an abuser, and I was like, we've lost the plot. We've lost the plot. So I can definitely see why people automatically jump to that, and I think um there's other like series like I think about that kind of reminded me of My Little Monster,
Mm.
where there's like a teacher, a character, and the one girl obviously has a crush on him, but he's very like, he's not making anything, he's not making any moves. He tells her clearly like, I don't like you, I'm a teacher, I'm an adult, you are a child. And I think sometimes like it's unrealistic to act like teenagers do not get crushes on teachers. Like I think it is very unrealistic to think like even in school if you have a camaraderie with a teacher, even if nothing inappropriate is going on, the student falling for a teacher or what they believe is falling, because I think at that time too, like if you don't have people in your life and someone is showing you kindness, like you automatically perceive every relationship in a romantic lens. I think it's disingenuous to act like girls wouldn't get a crush on their teacher. Not saying that make the teacher absolutely never crossed that line, but it's like it's not realistic to be like, oh, that never happens.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, listen, I get why people say it. It's like, listen, like one of the first animes I ever saw, like even before Kimi Todoke, was Marmalade Boy. And if you've ever seen Marmalade Boy, that is a train wreck,
Li-
especially
Mm-mm.
especially with Mako and the teacher. I wanted to throw my shoes at the TV. Like, and listen, and like a clamp as the whole
Not
existence
too
of
much.
clamp.
Not too much. Not too much. Not too much. Not too much. Not too much.
Listen, I mess with Clam. I like that whole collective. I really do mess with them. But like like let's not say that shojo manga and then by extent their adaptations, like especially like the ones that were made in the early 2000s, like there wasn't like an issue of like if it was not the teacher, it was like a significantly older like man
Mm-hmm.
or boy that like I understand to an extent why because like even me as a teenager, I never had a crush on my teachers because for me there was a very distinct line. But I did have crushes on people who were older than me. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not that good of a person. I would have crushes on my friends' brothers. Like,
I think that's, but I also think too, like it's not just an anime manga thing. Like,
no.
look at Pretty Little Liars. That one girl was having a whole relationship with the teacher.
Yeah, like
Like, I think
Ariana
it mean
Ezra.
and I never saw the show, but I think in media, like that's just a very common thing. So yeah, I get it. And I say not too much on Clamp because I have a whole series on Clamp,
Okay.
where I do talk about that. So but yeah, I definitely think it's like it is a problem, but then we're also like you go to the extreme where then there's that like overcorrection
Yeah.
of like okay, like you're seeing things when then they're not there, and like that is also then a problem. Like it is a problem that exists, but then you're assigning that problem that exists to things where that problem isn't there.
Well, yeah, because
Uh
it's like after so many years of it going unchecked, not because purpose necessarily. It's just a lot of us were too young to catch it. It's like
and I
now,
think cultural norms, like
yeah,
it's if it was like one story, but it's like so many stories and like so many things, and I find like, and I don't know about you, but like I knew people in my life where they were like, oh, this grown man that you know, his new wife is 14, and I'm like, uh what?
yeah.
And it's just so, but it's like one of those things. Like I feel like we are now in society in general getting to a point where like, hey, that is child marriage, that is pedophilia, like that is completely wrong. But like to say back then, there definitely were people that thought that it was wrong, but most of the time it was normalized, and it's like that's what it was too.
Absolutely,
And
yeah. Like
and
it's
now you're reading it like with today's mind. It's I'm not saying like that then that in no way justifies it, but I'm saying like it's so much harder now for us to like you read things and you're like, whoa, this is completely like crazy and wrong. But at that time, like if you knew somebody who got with their teacher and got married, like you would be like, okay,
well,
like
yeah. It's like just
weird, but
because
it
you
happens.
like as a person progressed,
Mm-hmm.
like your mind has progressed. You have moved on. You have like learned from your mistakes. It doesn't mean that the rest of the world has too.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like a piece of media, like a book. It's not like the author was like, oh, hold on, let me redo the whole story real quick because now that society has shifted and I have learned from my mistakes or whatever, like the book is still going to exist the same way it does. And I actually would argue that good, because that way, like, I see things from a like archival perspective where it's like
Mm-hmm.
I want like I don't think it's fair to like be like, oh yeah, we should get rid of things that no longer suit like where we are as a society. And I'm just like,
Right.
okay, but like we still should be able to preserve these things because that way we can keep track and like archive like where we were. What does that say about that society in time? Because how are we supposed to get the information to like move forward again? Like you don't just move forward in a vacuum. You kind of have to go back and be like, okay, what did we do last time? How did we go wrong? How do we like how are you supposed to analyze things if you don't have the proof of the bad thing? Like
Right. No, and that's also I feel like people don't think about that.
yeah.
It's like when people go to that overcorrection side, like you still it still needs to exist. It still needs to exist. We still need to be a way to like examine like,
Mhm.
okay, why was this terrible? But you can't like rewrite history to then because then the lines get blurred of like what's acceptable, what's not acceptable anymore.
Yeah, because you're the one who's able to do it now, but you have no telling that the next person who's able to like basically wield the eraser will probably be that you can't guarantee that person is going to be a good person with good intentions.
Yes. But getting back to because I we could talk 3 hours about this. So when you think about Kimi ni Todoke's legacy, what do you think it is?
Wow, I was thinking about that for a long time, and like I know what it is to me personally. To me personally, it is like the legacy of that is like this is one of the top 5, top 3 animes for me that helped me kind of process that time of my life. So like that was like really early middle school. I was like a social outcast, and I was someone who wanted to express my feelings, but I didn't know how, especially like in a new setting. Like I moved to a new town, and I was just kind of like I related to Sawako. So like I really like the legacy of Kimi ni Todoke was just like shout out to the goat, because like without Kimi ni Todoke I would not have an outlet or like a thing to kind of like hyper impose myself on. Like I really do like I mean that's subsequently the point of
Mhm.
making stories like Kimi ni Todoke for the girls that were like me and for the future like to come, to see themselves in a forward standing role that isn't like my name is Destiny Darkness and I punch guys and I do this and like I that's cool. love that during my emo phase. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, we need different representations of different kinds of girls, because to assume that we're the same girl 24/7 is a little bit naive. Like, I have multiple protagonists living inside of me. Some days I'm a Hachi, some days I'm a Sawako, some days I'm a Yona, some days I'm a Yuki. Like, it really depends on like what period of time I'm in, and I like the variety because you can have a protagonist for every stage of life, and that's kind of the point. And not everybody lives the same experience. So I guess I answered my own question. Actually, now that I think about it, it's like I think the legacy of Kimi ni Todoke, even though it's the same reason why people don't like it, um, Sawako was really that girl for the shy ones. You know what I mean? Like, now we have like things like honey lemon soda and stuff like that, but like back in like 2000 and like 5 ish, like she really was the first one that felt realistic to me, as funny as that sounds. Like, a lot of manga back then were very much on the side of like almost like telenovela like
Mhm.
levels of like absurdity, but she was the first girl that I'm like, I can see myself going to school with her and her friends. Her friends were really cool. I wanted friends like Chizuru and Ayane really bad. And like representation for guys like Kazehaya. Like, bro was mad chill. He was just a guy. And
He was
like,
just a
he's
guy.
just a guy. Like, I was so used to people like Usui and like that guy from Wolf, like Wolf Prince or something like that. Um oh my god. And like just a lot of like, and then like the guys from like Nana were like insane. Like, I it's just like,
Red flag. Cancel them. Can't talk
yeah,
about the
like
guys from
there was
Nana.
a lot of toxicity. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of oh my god, like the guy from Itsura na Kiss was like the poster boy for these kind of guys, where they were like oh my god, what is the word?
Sundares.
Not tsundere, where it's like negging. They were negging the whole time. Like, they would basically kind of put you down in
That
order.
sounds like a yandere.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, they just kind of like put you down in order to like try harder for their affection.
That is, I just looked it up. It was not yandere, but
Okay.
yes, I know what you mean. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely, and I love what you said about like, the legacy being like that. Girls like that are okay. Like, it is okay to be a shy person and not be the loud person, and then also that you have the ability to change, and you do have the ability to like how you are, and you people see you as a girl from the ring doesn't mean like that's who you have to be.
Right.
uh so I love that. And you kind of answered this, but maybe there's also another way. In what ways has Kimi ni Todoke impacted your life or changed your life?
I will say that one of the ways it like helped me definitely during that time was that what's it called? I think I had like what, like 3 hours to myself in my house when I would come home from school and watch anime, before my parents would come home, and then I would have to turn everything off. um, but those 3 hours were so precious to me because I was able to really dive into anime, but specifically shoujo anime and manga, because up until that point, I didn't really feel like talked to,
Hmm.
not like catered to, because that's something different, but talked to was something I had never experienced. I think the most I got was like Witch, but Witch had like a narrative, like it was like very narrative heavy. Like, it was like kind of like an adventure you were going on with them that you
Hmm.
could then identify with them. But Kimi ni Todoke was one of those first animes where I'm like, I feel like I'm being talked to, where it's like, come with us and take the role of Sawako while you're watching, and like experience these things, and like through the lens of a Japanese society, because like it's one thing to kind of like, I feel like with American dramas, it was very like over dramatic, as funny as that sounds, but like it was like Pretty Little Liars levels of like
Yeah,
stuff.
like it's never no regular story.
Yeah, it's
Slice
like,
of life is not really a thing,
no,
or
and it's not.
hasn't really
And
been.
it's not like, don't get me wrong, I loved Pretty Little Liars. I watched it up until like season 3 or 4, but like other than that, what was on TV? Like Secret Life of the American Teenager, 16 and Pregnant. Like, it was just very like, there was nothing that I felt safe in that didn't scare me. Like,
Hmm.
everything was a lesson, a warning. Kimi
Yes,
ni
yes.
Todoke was like, it's okay to be 14 and confused. I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, monumental. And everybody was so chill and nice, and it was very like, I could see myself going through these things with these girls, basically.
Yeah, you're so right about like a lot of American TV that we grew up with, like targeted towards teens, was there's a bigger lesson at the end of it, and like a very literal lesson to a specific, like, don't do drugs. And like you'll think about certain sitcoms and shows that we watched, and there was always like the gang episode, the drug episode.
Yeah.
Your one classmate is addicted to caffeine pills.
Yeah.
Like it was very literal lessons for specific things that they were afraid like the teenage public going to. And that definitely is a difference in like the type of media where like, and that's why I feel like this seems unrelated, but it is related, why a lot of people really gravitated towards Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like it had that anime, it was heavily inspired by anime, but it was one of those shows that had a narrative outside of giving you a daily lesson every episode, and there's a larger plot and larger themes. So I love that you bring that up, and I'm glad that like I the Kimi Todoke was all of these things for you, because I feel, I'm older than you, not by much, but I am older. I'm an elder in the space. I feel like, growing up, like, I did watch Sailor Moon and Digimon and Pokemon. Like, those were my big three. And then there was, like, a point of time where I didn't have cable. So the only anime I had access to was, like, on Comcast On Demand. And it was always randomly watching, like, 2-3 episodes of something. And it wasn't things that were, like, geared like that I could relate to, where there's certain like shojo and things now, like that if it came out at that time that I was that age, it would have been very impactful for me. So I definitely love that it had that effect on you, and I love that you came here and you talked to me about Kimi Todoke, sitting in the expert seat. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And before we wrap up, do you have anything you're working on that you want to tell the people to check out or look for?
Yeah, so what's it called? I do have that chapter 0 situation, so it'll definitely be out by then, by the time that this is up. So definitely go pick that up. It's gonna be like a physical book, so definitely pick it up. Get yourself a Shikishi board. Um, but on top of that, by the time this is up, I fingers crossed we'll probably have chapter 1 up, open to the public, to just read it. I kind of want to follow in the footsteps of my, you know, the people that I look up to, and just kind of follow the mangaka kind of like flow, and just like have myself open to the public for people to read it, and so that it's like readily accessible and stuff like that. So if you like shojo manga, and if you want to read a story about like kids with superpowers living in New York City and talking about generational trauma with slice of life elements and like messiness that happens in college, please read it. My main character is super relatable. I wouldn't say that she's a girl boss necessarily, but she's someone who's realizing that, hey, maybe everything that I've been told all my life is probably not true, and I should probably get to know myself instead of trying to please other people, which I'm pretty sure is very relatable for a lot of immigrant children, and especially like firstborn daughters. It's like we don't typically have the privilege of getting to know ourselves until much later in life. So, maybe reading that will be really cathartic for some of you.
Yes, and having seen some of the stuff, I definitely think it will be. So thank you so much for coming on the show. And for those of you listening, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. Hopefully you've commented already all of your thoughts. But thank you guys so much for listening to the Wonder of Anime podcast. And don't forget to leave a review or rating on wherever you listen to let people know that you like this show. But Lucy, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna stop.